Springtime in your Geauga Park district offers blooming wildflowers, all kinds of activities, and plenty of clean, fresh air. Time exploring outdoors is always time well spent. Spring fun begins at geaugaparkdistrict.org.
For coming out today for this remembrance and celebration of Judge Henry's life. It certainly was a long time coming, and we wanted to make sure that we remembered him in an appropriate way here on Chardon Square. And so this is a long overdue recognition, obviously today being the 10th anniversary of his passing, but we wanted to go ahead, and obviously there were a lot of people who worked to make this possible today. As you know, I like committees and formed a committee to help get it done. And so I think I first reached out to Ann Molinar, who helped pick out the stone and the plaque, and then we assembled a committee for today. And I probably will forget somebody, but it's Chris Steigerwald, Michelle Schroeder, Kimberly Berry, Carolyn Squire, Julie Goring, Charlie Zimmerman. So they helped work in putting this together today. So what we're going to do is I'll have a few words, and then Judge Burt is going to speak, and then Adam Henry will be called up to speak on behalf of the family. After we do that, then we will unveil the plaque at the tree, which is over here. And there are flowers there that anyone who wishes to place a flower around the tree will be able to do so. So in this case, we all know Judge Henry was a dedicated public servant. He served this county in many capacities during his career. He dedicated his career to public service. He served in the Peace Corps. He was an assistant prosecuting attorney. He was a state senator. He was assistant public defender. And then lastly, the probate juvenile judge for 18 years. During his time, a lot changed here in the court. He brought the CASA program, a volunteer guardianship program, and for the first time in the court's history, we moved from the courthouse over to the courthouse annex. Certainly we all remember where we were and what we were doing 10 years ago today when we first heard the news of his untimely passing and what we were doing on that tragic day. And certainly I remember him for his integrity and his commitment to public service and his example that he set for other people. What we wanted to do then was to go ahead and place a tree on the square. So several years ago we approached the county, and the county is the one who actually planted the tree. And I'm told, and a few of you will laugh about this because I was wondering what kind of tree it really was, and at least one arborist has stated that it is a willow oak tree. So there's 400 or 500 varieties of oak trees, and that's what this particular tree is. So I went to look, what does an oak tree stand for? What is its symbolism? And what I found was that the mighty oak represents a symbol of courage and power. It stands strong through all things. It symbolizes strength and character and is a protector. The location of the tree, as you can see, is between the annex and the courthouse. That was picked on purpose. If you remember, Judge Henry served 11 years over in this courthouse from 1993 to 2004. And then he was involved in the planning and design of the courthouse annex, which was kind of his pride and joy. And we were over there from 2004 until 2011. In preparing for today, I came across some photos from a collage that was put together 10 years ago, and I noticed Linda has them in the scrapbook, and to make sure you go over there, and also there's a guest book to sign with any memories you want to have. But there were 3 of those photos that kind of stood out to me and kind of summarized his character and the type of person he was. As I stated, he was the one who planned and designed the new court space over in the courthouse annex, and he took a lot of pride and was very protective of that facility. And one of the photos that kind of stands out to me is nothing was beneath him in the sense of doing it. Like, he wasn't above there, he wouldn't do certain tasks. And in these photos, if you can see, he's going down the hall in his shirt and tie with a vacuum cleaner behind him and cleaning a spot on the carpet because that was his job to do as a judge of the probate juvenile court. Certainly, we also know his dedication to the job and that he rarely missed work. There was probably a handful of days that he never showed up. And you know, if he wasn't showing up for work, that it was going to be something major had happened. I do recall one time he fell and broke his ribs, and he was only out a few days, and he insisted on coming back, hearing his docket, even though he was in visible pain and just barely getting through the day. But he was the one who had to do that job, and he made sure he showed up for work and to do that. The other one, much later on, pre-COVID, and I guess that's kind of why it stood out to me. He was very ill, but he insisted on coming into work, and but he was going to protect the staff, and he locked himself in his chambers, and there were chairs placed outside the chambers where the files were exchanged back and forth, and he made sure he had the door locked, and there's a handwritten note from him that says, "Stay out, quarantine." And well, obviously that was him. I'm going to do my job, I'm going to protect you, and that was just the kind of person he was. And then the third photo is something that I think we all know about, his love of children. And I can recall anywhere you went, if there was a baby there, he was holding the baby, he was playing with the kids. And this photo, we had a Christmas party over at the chalet in Chardon, and there were kids there, and there was go sledding a hill, and there's a judge, a big smile on his face, sledding with the kids on the sled and having the good old time. So, you know, not only did he like kids and his love of kids, but also the outdoors, and it kind of summed up what he stood for. So obviously during his time he put together a very professional staff. He expected the best from us, and he received the best from us. And the staff, we were like a court family, and I think you'll see on the plaque, it says from your court family, and that doesn't mean just the employees, but the extended family of people who may be involved with the court. Certainly I was lucky to know him, his honesty, his integrity, his friendship. He was a mentor. And I'm certainly happy that we can do this today for Judge Henry and his family, and hopefully his memory will live on. All right. Thank you. And
applause, he deserves it. Thanks. Chris told me I could talk about anything I wanted, and I knew Dave and Adam were going to talk about Chip Henry. I'm going to talk about my favorite subject, me. And more specifically, I want to talk how lucky I've been over the years. Over 40 years ago, I was lucky enough, when I was just starting to practice law, to share office space with a former prosecuting attorney for Jogga County. A respected attorney, someone who was known for his good sense of humor, but also known for honesty and integrity. And we shared that space, and I learned a lot from Gene Henry. Learned how to practice law, learned how to practice life. But Gene also introduced me to the Henry clan. Certainly an experience. It was the first time I'd ever been introduced to organized chaos. Among the people I met would be Chip, his oldest son. At that time, I knew him as the masked streaker. And over the years, we would talk about Chip at Kenston High School, then Miami College, then at Peace Corps. We talked about when Chip met this woman in Africa and how was that ever going to work out. I guess it did. And then, of course, Chip went into law school. And Gene and I would talk about law school. Chip and I would talk about law school. When Chip got out of law school, excuse me, he came to practice in Chardon. and we shared offices over across the street, but we also were assistant prosecutors together. And we would talk about cases. Chip would listen to advice sometimes. He would ignore advice, such as the sage wisdom, don't ever run for state senator against an incumbent. You can't possibly win. And then he'd laugh, that maniacal laugh of his, when he did win. Then in 1995, I was lucky enough to be able to become a judge and serve not only with Chip, but with Fred Inderlead, and then later with Dave Fury. And I can honestly say that we were probably the most cohesive, cooperative group of judges that Geauga County has seen in a long time. We had our differences, we had our arguments, but they never became personal. We always managed to come to an agreement as to how we as a group thought things should be done. During my time with Chip as a judge, there was never any question. His actions were always in the best interest of the people of Geauga County. His actions, his decisions were always in the best interest of the juveniles of Geauga County. There was never an issue, never a question about Chip's integrity, never a thought that he was doing something for his own best interest. It was always for somebody else. Chip, as Dave has mentioned, had a professional staff, and that reflected upon him, but it also reflected upon those people here. It was a great staff. As I had the opportunity to interact, I always found them helpful, friendly, knowledgeable, a little bit quirky. That's you. Notice how she identified. And frankly, that also describes Chip. Helpful, intelligent, knowledgeable, and just a little bit quirky. Thank you all for being here.
So, just like me, my son is a daddy's boy, so if he comes running up here to join me, let's just all go with it. All right, so we're all okay. My name is Adam Henry. I'm Chip's son, and I am honored to represent the Henry family at today's dedication, which you all envisioned and put together. And I think I'm supposed to have my mom and my wife and sister, people up here. You're not coming up?
The kids are happy where they are.
I'll introduce them later. So sitting down to figure out what I was going to say today reminded me of one of the hardest parts of not having him around, my dad. And I was asking for his advice when we navigate difficult times. And I'm sure many of us have shared similar thoughts as what would Chip do? I know he'd start by thanking all of you for being here and the group of people who put this dedication together. And that's Dave, Kimberly, Ann, Chris, Michelle, Carolyn, Julie, Charlie, and so many others that I can't name right now. But he wouldn't stop there. He'd want to thank each and every one of his colleagues individually for everything that you've done for him and our family since he was appointed to the bench in 1993 and since his passing 10 years ago today. This is an extremely sad day for us, his family. So my mother, Linda, my sister, Kim, her husband, Andrew, my wife, Ashley, our kids, Chip and Will. We've got Henry, we've got Danny, and we've got Cameron. So all those kids. We've got my grandmother, aunts. Oh, there's Grandma. We've got aunts and uncles. There's a lot of us here today. But his family didn't stop there, because all of you here are part of our family. Many of you had parental responsibilities. So my sister and I like to go to work with Dad a lot. A lot. And you were all there as we grew up, and we're doing okay, so thank you. You also took care of my dad. I think it was mentioned the quarantine. So even when he was sick and he would refuse to stay home, quarantine protocols were implemented in the judges' chambers long before the COVID pandemic ever hit. So we were prepared here, and I guess we can thank him for that as well. And you were all there to support each other and us as we tried to come to terms with his passing and make sure that his code of ethics continued to make Geauga County a better place. Because that is what family does, and he would not have had it any other way. So once again, thank you for being part of our family and including us in today's dedication ceremony. It means the world to me that the people he shared his life with continue to keep his memory in their hearts. And since I promised my mom I'd keep it short, I'd like to conclude by taking the liberty of speaking to you on my father's behalf and saying he is very proud of his family. So thank you all.
Showed you the picture of the judge cleaning up the mess in the hallway, and the night that the judge died, several of us went up to the courthouse annex, and we were in my office, and as we left, the judge was crazy about that being spilled in his new courthouse over there, and chastised us all for drinking coffee, water, anywhere, walking. Yeah, he wanted it kept clean. So we were in my office for several hours. Nobody had been at the court. And as we were walking out, the very spot that the judge had cleaned up, there was a big spot on the floor, a wet spot on the floor, right where he had cleaned up and had chastised us all. So we all took it. That was a message from the judge. Keep my courthouse clean. But he was still sending messages to us, and we all took it as he's okay. And just be there for each other. Keep my courthouse nice. And we did. We tried.
I wanted to say a few things about him as well. First of all, it's so great that everybody can come from different walks of life and all over, and all the different years we came and went and come together today for this very, very honorable man to celebrate his life, not his passing, but to celebrate his life. And I congratulate all of you for being here. I was probably, I guess I have to say, I was his second hire. He hired Dave first, and then he hired me. But I started before Dave, so I have court seniority over Dave. But anyway, when I started with him, getting to know him, I had worked for judges. When you talk about no job was beneath him, I went into the coffee room one day and he's making coffee. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm making coffee." I worked in Cuyahoga County for 12 years. That never happened. He just, whatever needed to be done, he did it. And I honestly, it took me a long time to get him. We would have meetings with him, and he would sit in the meetings at 4 o'clock as if he would be anywhere but the meeting, and we would talk to him, and he would look around, and I thought, why are we doing this? He's really, not paying attention. And then 2 days later, he would come down to my office, pick up an issue that was in that meeting, verbatim what I said in that meeting. So I started to understand that he operated a little different, and came to respect that and came to appreciate that. And socially, we were a court family. Judge Henry would make an appearance, but we didn't do a lot of social things outside of the courthouse with Judge Henry. He kept his life very private. And it wasn't until 2013, when my own husband became a judge, that I got that. I understood that. When you take on the responsibilities and obligations of passing judgment and being fair and being impartial and being a moral compass, your life has to look a little bit different too, or at least a little private. I know he kicked up his heels, but he didn't do it in public, and he didn't do it with us. So I understood that. I came to understand that more and more as my husband has been a judge. And in concluding, he leaves the legacy that no one can touch, and that is the role of a judge is to resolve conflict, not to create it. Thank you.
Wow, it's going to be tough.
My name's Kimberly Herman Berry, and I was smart enough first. One of the smartest decisions I ever made, besides marrying my husband, having my kids, was applying for a job at the Geauga County Juvenile Probate Court. After a couple of really stressful and very nervous interviews, I was lucky enough to be hired by Judge Henry and David Lebecki as the newest member of the court family. I call it a family. They put together a staff that was knowledgeable and professional, but dysfunctional, just like a family would be. And we did so many things within the court that he had us enjoy. We had outings to a point. We had birthday celebrations in the court. We had Christmas holidays in the courtroom over when we were in this building and that building. After that was done, no, we did not have them in the courtroom. One Christmas holiday party, my son was pretty young back then. He did not know there was a party going on. He came up to the courthouse to see me, and this is how many years ago it was. He was wearing his headphones and carrying a Walkman. And he walks into this party, and he's pretty shy, and he walks into the middle of the party, and Judge Henry just ambles over to him, takes the headphones off my son, puts them on his ears, and starts listening. And I'm thinking, oh my Lord, I really hope it's not one of those songs. And he took them back off, put them back on Clinton's ears, and he never said a word. And to this day, I still don't know what song was playing, but we're really, really hoping it wasn't anything terrible. As a court staff, one year, most of the staff that we did this with are here right today, we bought him a robe. Because up until that point, let's face it, he was kind of a spendthrift kind of guy. Up until that point, I believe the robe was a choir robe, maybe a church robe. He didn't have a real judge robe, so we bought one. The court staff bought one for him, and we had it monogrammed from your court family or the court staff and the year. And after his passing, Linda actually, this is how special David Lebecki is to him and to us. Linda gave David that robe, and that's something that it was perfect. That's the way it should be. I guess that's it. I just wanted to tell you some crazy little things that man did, and we're all very lucky to have had him, and I thank him for giving me the job of my dreams and for giving me the opportunity to work with so many amazing people who I still consider my friends. Thanks.
Defender, and back in 1993 when Judge Laverick passed away, that's when Chip became judge. But 3 months before that, he came to work at my office. I really didn't know Chip very well before then, but Kimberly, I'm glad you mentioned something about him being frugal. Now, a lot of you have probably heard this story before, but I learned some lessons in frugality working with Chip. You see, even as a public defender and assistant public defender, back in 1993, we didn't make any money at all. So we had to live frugally. And Chip and I determined that we'd go to Giant Eagle, buy a bag of potatoes, buy some butter, some sour cream and cheese, put them in the microwave, and we could eat lunch every day for 37.5 cents. And that's a true story. He was also very concerned about being a good steward of the taxpayers' money. You know, we went down, we had to go to a 3-day death penalty seminar in Cincinnati. And the special rate for attendees at the hotel in 1993 was $125. That was a lot of money. Well, Chip and I weren't going to pay that, even though it was the taxpayers' money. We found a Red Roof Inn. We got a room with 2 double beds, paid $39 a night, and when we came back we turned in our food bill for the 3 days. Tracy Jemison could not believe our food bill. $18 between us. Chip and I figured, hey, if Taco Bell's good enough when we're at home, it's good enough when we're at a seminar. Now, Dave showed some pictures that kind of brought out the essence of Chip. There's one picture that I'm sure you've all seen. Adam, wherever you are, it's that picture of you sitting on his shoulders. I remember that time so well. That's vivid in my mind. And then the other thing, where's his cousin who mentioned about the duckling? Any of you who really knew Chip, you know about Darcy. Now, Darcy was a dwarf German Shepherd, suffered from pituitary dwarfism. She wasn't a miniature. As a matter of fact, when my wife and Linda found out that the Humane Society or the dog warden had confiscated these dogs in a rescue situation, these puppies, they wanted to go out and see them. I told them, please don't go. I knew she'd bring one back. Not only did she bring one back, but Linda brought one back. These were the homeliest, ugliest, most pathetic, pitiful dogs that you ever saw. Darcy didn't grow hair. Linda had to make coats for her. She had a nasty personality, and Chip loved her. And that dog loved Chip. But that was the essence of Chip. I miss you, my friend.
Engineer's office, we work together like a team.
Every role down here, a person has the opportunity to lead in their own position.
No matter what your title is, we are all an important part of the process.
Everybody's trying to help one another, and it's just a great camaraderie among the team members.